Brave Cloelia by Jane Louise Curry. King Lars Porsena, the Etruscan, looked out over the tents of his 10,000 soldiers and at his hundreds of horses and mules. "I am bored with this war," he growled. "I'll be glad to go home." "I too, my sweet," said his queen, and she patted his hand. The king scowled across the river Tiber at the 7 hills of the city of Rome. "Romans, they throw out our cousin Tarquin, their king, and then he nags me to win his city back for him. But even when I take Rome prisoner, what do these Romans say? Tell Tarquin to go twiddle his thumbs, we'll have no king at all." "If I had Tarquin for king, I would say the same," said the queen as she poured her husband a cup of cold pear juice and cream. King Larth gave a sigh. "I promised Tarquin, but the Romans would rather starve. Still today we have agreed to agree. They will send us 200 hostages and give up the Etruscan land they stole. We have promised to move back 2 miles toward our road home so that their farmers can come out to tend their fields and their flocks." "Well done," said his queen. "Even 1 mile closer to home is better than none." The next day, King Larth watched as the Roman hostages were led from the boats. 198, 199, 200. The king counted. "By Flufflins, the Romans have kept their word. Maybe they really do wish for peace," he thought for a moment. "Master Haruspix," he called out to his diviner of omens, whose job it was to read the future, "I consider that a good omen, do you?" "I do, King of Clevsin," said old Lars, the Haruspix. "I see some here from the great clans of Rome. There are Fabi and Valerie, Pinari, Cloelia." The Cloelia came last. First was Uncle Julius Cloelius, then his small son, Publius, his tall wife, Tullia, and his plump daughter, Julia, and last of all, his niece, Cloelia. The hostage camp had no wall or fence, but the Etruscan king's guards were everywhere. Young Cloelia felt like a mouse in a trap. Her uncle Cloelius was stiff and stuffy. "Of course we'll be safe," he huffed. "King Larth now knows that Rome keeps its word, and we are his guarantee that it will keep the peace. Stand straight, Cloelia, and tuck in your chin." Aunt Tullia was snappish and sniffy. She glared all around. "That queen's face is painted, and the men strut like peacocks in their vulgar, showy robes. Oh, and the servant boys wear nothing at all. Disgusting! Look away, Cloelia." After supper, Cloelia slipped out through the dusk to climb into the top of a great fig tree beyond the last hostage tent. Quiet as an owl on her perch, she looked out over the camp. She saw the great fields of tents, the horse pens, a straggle of rooftops down near the riverbank, and the ships. She watched lamps wink on in the windows of far-off Rome and torches flare in the camp close by. And as she watched the guards on patrol, her eyes grew as round as an owl's, then as narrow and as clever as a cat's, and she smiled. After dark, Cloelia lay still in her bed for a long time and listened. When the tent grew quiet, she threw off her cover and crept across to the nearest cot. "Cousin," she whispered, "are you awake? I'm going home to Rome." Julia's eyes blinked open wide. "Oh, Cloelia, you can't." "I can. If Uncle and Aunt had let me go home by myself, I wouldn't be here at all." "But now? And how?" "Not now, tomorrow night." Cloelia's eyes gleamed in the dark. "There's a path down to the little town and the river, a path that the guards don't watch. Come, swim home to Rome with me." Julia looked over toward her mother's bed. She hesitated for a moment. "I will," she said. "I'll ask Virginia, too," said Cloelia. "And Marcia?" whispered Julia. "Yes, and Domitilla, and Lucia, and Livia." At noon the next day, Aunt Tullia turned her nose at the hostages' meal. "Etruscan food is too spicy," she announced. "Tonight we will cook our own." So she and her friends made a list and sent a woman to tell the guards what they needed. In no time at all, and to everyone's surprise, wine and oil, fresh coriander, young pigs, and dried figs, vinegar and eggs, honey, pepper, and pears came by the cartload, all at King Larch's orders. And 2 carts came with all the things that the list makers had forgotten: the kettles and knives, the firewood, and big bronze braziers to cook on. Aunt Tullia and Uncle Julius and their friends gave directions while the not quite as important women chopped, measured, and mixed, and the not quite as important men butchered, built fires in the braziers, and baked bread in the coals. The girls tidied the tents, the boys played at wrestling and heart pastime, and Cloelia's whisper passed from girl to girl. "Tonight, in the moon shadow, beneath the fig tree, bare feet, nothing that jangles." At midnight, Cloelia lifted the flap of the tent and slipped out. The camp was asleep. Sentry fires and torches glimmered here and there in the darkness, and a sliver of moon shone down on the camp. Cloelia shrank back as a warning. Scrunch, scrunch of footsteps drew near and passed by. When the guard was gone, she slipped out and darted down between the tents and away. Julia came next, and another girl's shadow, and another. Waiting in the darkness under the trees, Cloelia counted 5, 6, 10, 23, 32, 40. Cloelia and her shadows tiptoed away from the trees single file and scurried to hide behind a row of cowsheds. The line flitted through the moonlight as swiftly as a slender snake, but stopped still as a row of stones at the clank of a spear and the slap of a sandal. "Who goes there?" roared a guard as a pebble rolled past him near the shed. "Who goes there?" yelped another as a shadow flickered among the leaves in a vineyard. Who goes there?" croaked a third as a scrap of cloud covered the moon and hid the heads that bobbed along behind a garden wall. Who, hooted an owl voice from an olive tree. Cloelia, then 2, 10, 20, 40 girls crawled down a deep, dirty ditch. They crept along behind a boatman's house near the river Tiber. Cloelia peered out to make sure the way was clear. A stout sentry stalked up and down on the stone quay along the river's edge. "Oh no," breathed Barbara, or Claudia, or Flavia. Cloelia pointed to the 2 tall-powered ships anchored near the riverbank. Then she pointed to the sky where a great cloud was coming up to cover the moon. In the darkness, one by one, the girls slipped after Cloelia. One by one they slithered down the bank, then slid like otters through the dark water between the ships. And when the moon came out again, they were safe in the long ship's shadows. "All together," Cloelia whispered in the nearest ear. "Pass it on. All together, pass it on," whispered away to the right. All together went the whisper away to the left. 1, 2, 35, 41. Dark heads bobbed in the river. 82 arms sliced through the water. 82 feet fluttered fiercely. "Who goes there?" shouted the stout sentry of the quay. "Ho, guards! Torches here! Guards! Torches!" The girls paddled on, plunged on, raced on, surged on. "There!" shouted a guard. "No, there!" cried another. "Stop them! Shoot!" the captain shouted. Arrows swished through the air. They stung the water. Splish, splash, plash. In Rome, the sentries on the city walls were the first to hear the shouts and see the torches swarm around down to the river's edge. They came to the captain of the guard. "The Etruscans are shooting at the river." The captain took a look and sent men to awaken the senators. "The Etruscans are shooting at girls out swimming." The men told the half-asleep senators. Some senators came to look, and they sent messengers to call the consuls. The consuls came to look and saw that the strong swimmers had already reached the shore. "To the river," they cried. "Help those girls out of the water." The noise and the news brought out the citizens, too. They poured through the city gate to welcome the girls with glad cries of "Marcia," or "Camilla," or "Julia," and they wrapped them in the dry clothes and warm embraces. In the Etruscan camp, King Lars strode up and down in a rage. He waved his arms. He shouted at his general, Prince Arons. The captain and corporal of the guard trembled at every word. "Sentries who can't keep watch, guards who can't guard, archers who cannot shoot. I should have every man of them whipped. Tell me, were no guards posted at the hostage tents?" "There were, great king," Prince Arons said in a very small voice, "but only at the tents of the men and boys." "So our guards were eluded by a gaggle of girls, outwitted by this crafty Cloelia, this child? Indeed, it is so, great king," mumbled the general and captain and corporal of guards. "Herg," roared the king, "call my ambassador to me. I don't give a fig for the 40, but I will have this Cloelia. By great Hercule, the girl is more of a danger than Horatius." King Lars' ambassador was rowed to Rome to present the king's angry demand. "Send the hostage Cloelia to me at once. If you don't, our treaty is broken, and my army will sweep over Rome like a storm. If the girl comes, I shall return her to you, but she must come." "We have no choice," Cloelia's grandfather said gravely. "If the Etruscans return and can't break down our gates, they'll simply camp outside our walls again and wait for Rome to starve." Cloelia's father nodded, but anger made his eyes bright. "Still, we won't send her back like a runaway slave. We'll take her back, and proudly." So they did, Cloelia's grandfather and father and all the great men of the family of Cloelius. They crossed the Tiber in the only boat Rome could command. As Cloelia stepped onto the quay and walked to meet King Lars' royal guard, Cloelia watched with their heads held high. "See, Their proud looks seemed to say, even the smallest of Romans is the equal of an Etruscan king. So this is Cloelia, King Lars, Porsena growled, a small person to be such a great nuisance. Thank you, King, said Cloelia. King Lars' queen laughed and clapped her hands. King Lars scowled. Then he laughed too. Oh, I like this Roman. She has enough courage for a troop of my flat-footed cards. Tonight, Cloelia, you will join us at our feast. There were toasted almonds and hazelnuts, chestnuts and pine nuts, bowls of fava beans and buttered peas, plates of plump stuffed mushrooms and flatbreads topped with spicy sausage and stringy cheese, platters of baked mullet, squid and eels, then roasted veal and lamb and suckling pig and wild boar stuffed with figs. When Cloelia couldn't take another bite, King Lars raised up his silver wine bowl. Hear me, sons and daughters of great Clevesin, and drink to brave Cloelia. To Cloelia herself, the king said, I have promised to send you home, but in honor of your cunning and courage, I now promise you something more. Tomorrow you may pick from the hostages another 40 to take back with you to Rome. If the choosing is too hard, no, king, Cloelia said loudly, for she guessed which hostages the king would most like to keep, for fear that one day they would wage war against him. I'll choose from among the boys. The next morning the walls of Rome were lined with eager watchers. Would Lars Porsena keep his word, or would he carry Cloelia away? Something's afoot, they said, although there was nothing moving. Something's astir, they cried, although there was nothing to see. Then, listen, horns, came a cry from Capitoline Hill. And drums, came a shout from the fort of Palatine Hill. Look, banners, came a call from the Servine Wall. Down the triumphal way marched the trumpeters and drummers, carrying flags of crimson and gold. Down toward the boats by the river came the black horses and gold chariot of King Lars Porsena, with a dozen crimson canopied carriages following him. Behind marched the soldiers of the great city of Clevesin. By the hundreds, the thousands, and still thousands more. Rome fell silent in fear until a small figure jumped down from beside the king and 40 others from the carriages behind. Cloelia, I see Cloelia, cried Julia, and a great shout rang out from the walls and hills of Rome. Cloelia is bringing our Roman boys home. A great crowd met the boats at the wharf. At the front were 2 consuls elected to govern Rome, the 12 lictors, and all 300 senators. Behind them were the Cloelii, then the relatives of the returning boys, and as many soldiers and citizens as could crowd through the gates. The people cheered as the Etruscan ambassador led Cloelia ashore. They cheered as the boys poured off of a second boat. What has happened? The consuls shouted. All is well, the ambassador said, and he told the king's gift to Cloelia. The treaty is not broken. The war is over at last. And see, said he, even now King Lars and his army are marching off toward the road and to Veii. The good news leaped from hill to hill. Cloelia, Cloelia, the crowds roared out. We want Cloelia. Cloelia's father lifted her up onto his horse. The soldiers formed a guard of honor to parade her into the city. Behind came the boys, then the consuls, the lictors, and the 300 senators. As the parade passed by, all of Rome gave a cheer and followed. After a year or two, Lars Porsena sent the rest of the hostages home from Clevesin. From that time forward, he and Rome remained at peace. The Senate paid to have a statue cast in bronze, the first of its kind in Rome, of a woman or a girl. The bronze Cloelia sat astride a bronze horse at the top of the sacred way, and in the inscription of the statue's base read Cloelia Fortis, which is Latin for Cloelia the Brave.